was a cold and stormy night. A young boy named Billy was home alone because his parents had gone out for the evening. Billy was sitting in the living room watching TV when he heard a noise outside. He got up and went to the window, but he couldn't see anything. The noise came again, and this time Billy was sure he heard it coming from the basement. He was scared, but he remembered his parents telling him to never go into the basement alone. He decided to wait for them to come home. A few minutes later, Billy heard another noise, this time coming from upstairs. He slowly crept up the stairs and looked around the landing, but he couldn't see anything. He tiptoed down the hallway to his bedroom, and as he reached the door, he heard a loud crash from the bathroom. Billy's heart pounded in his chest. He slowly opened his bedroom door and peeked into the hallway. He saw a dark figure standing in the bathroom. It was tall and slender, with long arms and legs. The figure turned towards Billy and opened its mouth wide, revealing sharp, pointed teeth. Billy screamed and ran back to his room. He slammed the door shut and locked it. He could hear the figure scratching at the door, trying to get in. He was terrified. Billy didn't know what to do. He wanted to call his parents, but he didn't want to leave his room. He thought about trying to climb out the window, but he was afraid of falling. The scratching at the door got louder and louder. Billy could hear the figure growling and snarling. He was sure he was going to die. Just then, he heard a loud crash from downstairs. The figure stopped scratching and looked down the hallway towards the stairs. Billy could see its eyes glowing in the darkness. The figure turned back to the door and began to pound on it. The door was starting to splinter. Billy could feel the floor shaking beneath his feet. He knew he had to do something. He couldn't just sit there and wait for the figure to break down the door. He thought about using his lamp as a weapon, but he knew it wouldn't do much good against such a powerful creature. Then he remembered the flashlight his dad had given him for Christmas. He grabbed it from his bedside table and switched it on. The light was so bright that it made the figure flinch. Billy held the flashlight up to the door and shined it into the figure's eyes. The figure let out a loud screech and backed away from the door. Billy kept shining the flashlight on the figure, and it slowly backed away down the hallway and into the bathroom. Billy heard it banging around in the bathroom for a few minutes, and then he heard it crash down the stairs. Billy waited for a few minutes to make sure the figure was gone, and then he opened the door and went downstairs. He looked around the living room, but he didn't see the figure anywhere. He went into the kitchen and found a note from his parents. They said they had to stay late at work and that they would be home as soon as they could. Billy was relieved that his parents were okay, but he was still shaken up by the experience. He didn't know what the figure was or why it had tried to break into his house. He went back upstairs to his room and lay down on his bed. He couldn't stop thinking about the figure's glowing eyes and sharp teeth. He wondered if it would come back. He finally fell asleep, and when he woke up the next morning, the first thing he did was check the door. It was still locked, and there were no signs that the figure had been there. Billy went downstairs and made himself some breakfast. He was still a little bit nervous, but he was also grateful that he was safe. He knew that he would never forget the scary night he had spent home alone. The wind howled outside like a banshee, rattling the windows and sending shivers down my spine. The house was silent, save for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway, each chime echoing through the empty rooms like a death knell. I was alone, home for the weekend while my parents were away. I'd always been a bit of a scaredy cat, but I had convinced myself that I was too grown up to be afraid of the dark anymore. I tried to distract myself by watching TV, but the flickering images on the screen only served to heighten my anxiety. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the curtain sent my heart pounding into my chest. I decided to make myself some hot chocolate, hoping it would warm me up both inside and out. As I stood in the kitchen, pouring the milk into a saucepan, I heard a strange noise from upstairs. It sounded like a scratching, almost like a rat trying to gnaw its way through the wall. My blood ran cold. I knew that rats didn't scratch like that. Whatever was making that noise was big, and it was definitely not welcome in my house. I grabbed a flashlight from the drawer and crept up the stairs, my heart pounding like a drum. The scratching grew louder as I ascended, and I could hear heavy footsteps echoing from the hallway. Grabbed a flashlight from the drawer and crept up the stairs, my heart pounding like a drum. The scratching grew louder as I ascended, and I could hear heavy footsteps echoing from the hallway. My hands trembled as I reached the top of the stairs. I squeezed the flashlight tighter, hoping that the beam of light would be enough to ward off whatever was lurking in the darkness. I turned the corner and saw it. A tall, shadowy figure stood in the middle of the hallway, its eyes glowing red in the darkness. It was the thing I had seen in my nightmares, the thing that had haunted me for years. The figure raised its hand, pointing at me with a long, bony finger. Its voice was like a rasping whisper, sending chills down to my core. "You're all alone," it hissed. "There's no one here to save you." I turned to run, but my legs felt like lead. The figure lunged towards me, its eyes burning like embers. I screamed, but no sound came out. The figure's icy grip closed around my throat, and I felt the life drain from my body. I was trapped in its grasp, helpless and hopeless. As darkness closed in around me, I could hear the figure's laughter echoing through the house. It was a cold, cruel sound, the sound of pure evil. I knew then that I would never see the light of day again. I was doomed to spend eternity in this haunted house, forever at the mercy of the darkness. But then, something unexpected happened. A door slammed shut downstairs, and the sound of heavy footsteps echoed towards the basement. The figure's grip on my throat loosened, and it turned to face the sound. I seized the opportunity and broke free from its grasp. I stumbled backwards, my heart pounding in my chest as the figure turned its attention back to me. But it was too late. The door to the basement burst open, and a blinding light filled the hallway. The figure recoiled, shielding its eyes with its hands. I took that chance to run. I raced down the stairs, not daring to look back. I could hear the figure screeching behind me, but I didn't slow down. I burst through the front door and into the cold night air. I didn't stop running until I reached the police station. I collapsed into a chair, gasping for breath, and told them everything that had happened. They looked at me with skeptical eyes, but I knew that what I had seen was real. I never went back to that house again, and I never forgot the night I spent home alone, face to face with my worst nightmare. In the ethereal quietude of the late hour, the room transformed into a theater of eerie shadows, each movement amplified by the flickering luminescence emanating from the TV screen. Lost in the captivating realms of the video game, I navigated through pixels and challenges, unaware of the encroaching silence that enveloped the space. The departure of my cousin seemed innocuous at first, a brief intermission in our late-night gaming session. Yet, as the door clicked shut behind him, an uncanny stillness descended, a palpable absence that rippled through the air, leaving an unsettling void in its wake. As I maneuvered through the digital landscapes, an abrupt interruption halted my focus. A subtle disturbance on the bed, a faint whisper of movement, akin to the impression of someone taking a seat beside me. Assuming my cousin had returned, I turned instinctively, anticipating a friendly exchange or a playful challenge. But the space beside me remained hauntingly unoccupied. Puzzlement gave way to a surge of primal fear, an inexplicable dread that tightened its grip around my chest. I scoured the room frantically, hoping for a logical explanation, but found only the haunting evidence: a distinct indentation on the bed, a chilling reminder of an unseen presence that defied rationality. Questions flooded my mind, each more unsettling than the last. Was it a spectral visitor, an otherworldly entity drawn to our late-night solitude, or a trick of an overactive imagination? The air felt charged with an unnerving energy, a presence that lingered like an unspoken echo, casting a shroud of unease over the room. When my cousin returned, there was a silent understanding between us, a shared acknowledgement of the inexplicable, an unspoken covenant to keep the chilling encounter veiled in secrecy. In the days that ensued, my cousin cautiously unveiled a series of disconcerting experiences, a persistent sensation of being observed, the eerie resonance of whispered murmurs echoing in the dead of night, and inexplicable movements of mundane objects seemingly guided by an unseen hand. That fateful night became a chilling saga, whispered in reverent tones, an enigma that transcended comprehension. It was a night when the boundaries between reality and the unknown blurred, leaving an indelible imprint of fear and uncertainty etched in the very fabric of my memory, haunting my thoughts long after I had departed from that cryptic room. The decrepit mansion loomed ominously within the dense woods, its ancient walls whispering tales of forgotten horrors. On a storm-laden night, my sister and I found ourselves confined to our room, seeking solace in each other's company amid the howling winds that rattled the windows and cast eerie silhouettes upon the walls. As we exchanged spine-chilling tales, the atmosphere inside mirrored the turmoil brewing outside. Shadows danced grotesquely, distorted by the sporadic flashes of lightning that briefly illuminated the room, only to plunge it back into menacing darkness. In the midst of our storytelling, an insidious scratching noise emerged, crawling from the darkest recesses of the room. Dismissing it as the mere protestations of an aging house, we carried on, our voices trembling slightly. However, the scratching escalated into an irregular, persistent tapping, as if a spectral finger beckoned us from beyond the veil. Fear clutched at our hearts as we turned our attention to the source of this unsettling rhythm. Abruptly, the room was swallowed by an impenetrable darkness. The storm outside seemed to muffle our terrified gasps as we groped blindly for any source of light, our hands finding nothing but the suffocating void. A palpable chill settled in the air, accompanied by a sinister silence punctuated only by ethereal whispers that slithered through the walls, their haunting cadence sending shivers down our spines. "Alone you are," a voice croaked, its icy words dripping with malevolence, resonating within the marrow of our bones. Clutching each other in terror, we felt the room pulsate with an unfathomable malevolence, a force beyond comprehension. Our attempts to flee were futile. The door mocked our desperate struggles, remaining steadfastly sealed against our frantic attempts to escape the nightmare that had engulfed us. As time blurred and twisted within that claustrophobic darkness, grotesque shadows morphed and writhed, assuming terrifying shapes that threatened to tear at the fabric of our sanity. Then, as though to mock our suffering, the lights flickered back on, revealing an empty room devoid of any spectral remnants. We stumbled out, shaken and breathless, haunted by the visceral horror that had transformed our sanctuary into a nightmarish realm. The memory of that harrowing night lingered, a chilling reminder of an encounter with an unspeakable evil that defied explanation, leaving us forever scarred by the indelible touch of the unknown.